It seems like every other week since the election, we've had some kind of story of a Labour councillor or a Labour MP who's done something a little bit naughty, right? In fact, I think if Keir Starmer tried to sack them all, he'd probably lose his majority in the House of Commons. That is just how bad it's got. Now, in this video, I'm going to take you through some of those stories. You'll know some of them you won't. But when you put them all together, it paints a pretty bleak picture. And I'll also give my explanation or why I think it's the case that this is happening in British politics, and specifically to the Labour Party, towards the end of the video. And I've got a special treat for Annie, but we'll save that for later. Okay, first story, hot off the press. Labour MP Mike Amesbury was found guilty of and sentenced for his attack on one of his own constituents. Now, there's video footage of this, of course, because it's 2025, so there's video footage of everything, and it's quite serious. He doesn't just strike the guy once, he strikes him multiple times, even when the guy is still on the floor. So knowing that, you might be wondering, well, just how long was he sent to prison for? 10 weeks. That's right, he got 10 weeks. As an MP for striking one of his own constituents, he got 10 weeks in prison. This blows my mind a little bit, and I'm not the only one. A lot of people are drawing comparisons with the kinds of sentences that people received in the wake of the Southport riots, particularly those who just posted things on social media. I'll give one example. Lucy Connolly. She was sentenced to 134 weeks, so a 13 times longer sentence, if you want to think of it that way, for writing some things on Facebook. Now, Lucy Connolly did write some very bad things on Facebook. She was inciting violence, let's be very clear about that, and I don't condone it. She said, to be precise, that people should go to the asylum hotels and set them on fire. Really not good, not classy. She did eventually delete it, but we have arrived at a situation, as far as I can tell, where writing something online and inciting violence is seen by the British state as 13.5 times worse than actually committing an act of violence. And that, to me, doesn't make any sense. I'm not condoning Lucy Connolly's behaviour. Maybe she deserved that sentence. I don't think so, in all honesty. But what you cannot do is look at these two cases side by side and say that this is a fair justice system that's going on, that's sort of taking place here, right? Now, who was the judge in Mike Amesbury's case? Well, we've already made a video about him. It was Tan Ikram, and you can go and watch that video, and what you'll find is that Tan Ikram seems to have a habit of inserting his own political beliefs into his judgments. That is not what we want from our judges. If you don't believe me, you can go and watch that video and make your own mind up. Maybe you disagree with me, but that's certainly how I perceive it. And I'm pretty sure Tan Ikram seems like the kind of guy who is definitely going to be a die-hard Labour voter. Now, that's not the only story making the rounds at the moment, because there's another one that you might have seen, and it's been on the front pages of many newspapers, and it's about a grandmother who had a visit to her house by two detectives, not ordinary police officers, two detectives, because of some posts that she had made, again, on Facebook. Check this out.
To have you on the show. An astonishing state of affairs. Greater Manchester is an area that basically fails to solve 3 out of 4 shoplifting incidents. It won't even report its violent crime figures when we ask them, and yet they find time to knock on your front door for a Facebook post. How on earth did that make you feel?
Well, it was a shock, because you don't often see plainclothes police officers. They're only sort of like used for very important things. So at first they knocked on the door. Obviously I wasn't in. So I spent 45 minutes worrying until they actually rang me. I was getting ready to go to a police station to ask what it was about.
So what was her crime then? What did she write that was so bad that she had these detectives come to her door? Well, she wrote that certain Labour councillors should be sacked, or questioning whether they were going to resign. And the Labour councillors in question, they were part of a now infamous Labour WhatsApp group in which some pretty disturbing things were said. I'll give you one example. Labour MP, although he's now been suspended, Andrew Gwynn, he wrote of a pensioner who was complaining about bin collections that he hopes she is dead by the time of the next election. Another Labour MP, whose name I can't remember, I think it was Oliver something, he's also resigned, and 11 Labour councillors. Yes, the 11 Labour councillors that she said should resign, well, they've been suspended by the Labour Party, so even the Labour Party agrees with her. Why is she having detectives come to her house? Who sent them there? Well, that's quite interesting, because she pretty much got an answer from the detectives, who I suspect were actually a little bit sympathetic towards her in reality. And they more or less confirmed that it was one of the councillors themselves who sent the police to her door.
Helen, can I ask you, there's been a lot of conversation about two-tier policing, about politicised policing. Do you think that in this particular instance, Labour councillors were utilising leverage to get that knock on your front door? Do you think that the police do feel politicised?
Definitely. I know for a fact if I went with the same complaint, they'd have pushed me out the station. They wouldn't have even picked up a pen to note it down. It's because it's come from a councillor.
Ricky Jones. We must not forget Ricky Jones, right? Because Ricky Jones is another Labour councillor who attended some protest or another, probably some Gaza thing, right? And he stood on stage and proudly declared that everyone who's a member of the far right in this country should be killed. He actually said it in slightly more graphic terms than that. Now, he was eventually, after much social media pressure, arrested and subsequently charged. He had a court date, I think, in January or maybe December of last year, and it didn't go ahead. It got delayed all the way till August. And that makes me really wonder what's going on here. Why is Ricky Jones's court date pushed back so far when other people involved in the Southport protests, for example, who also pled not guilty, well, they had hearings very, very quickly. Why does Ricky Jones's get pushed away, out of sight, out of mind? I do wonder. Now, part of me is a little bit suspicious and maybe thinks that they're waiting for the whole thing to sort of die down and go away so that when Ricky Jones gets his suspended sentence, we won't kick off about it. But I think that's a little bit naive because people will remember. They'll remember exactly what he did because we remember exactly what they did to us. But it's not just the Labour Party's thugs making the headlines, it's also their fraudsters. Now, we know all about Rachel Reeves and how she exaggerated her time at the Bank of England from 6 years to 10 years and then claimed that working in the NatWest Complaints Department was actually work as an economist. No, it isn't. But there's a new sheriff in town because Business Secretary and, again, Labour MP Jonathan Reynolds has been caught lying on social media pretending that he used to be a solicitor. He has never been a solicitor. And what's interesting about this is that is actually a crime in the UK. To pretend that you're a solicitor when you have never qualified as a solicitor is illegal. So you would think that there's some pretty serious reprimanding coming for Jonathan Reynolds, but it seems not, because he's apologised. And Keir Starmer is acting like a Catholic priest and absolving him of all of his sins just because he's confessed. Very strange. But remember what Keir Starmer said in the House of Commons prior to winning the election.
Mr. Speaker, here's the difference. When somebody in my party misbehaves, I kick them out.
Now, we mustn't forget Tulip Sadiq in all of this, right? Because Tulip, well, she's a Labour MP, but until recently, she was also a Treasury Minister. In fact, she was appointed by Keir Starmer to root out corruption in UK markets. But old Tulip, she had to resign. And why is that? Because in Bangladesh, where her family is from, she, Tulip, along with the rest of her family, have been named as part of an anti-corruption investigation. Specifically, the accusation is that Tulip, along with her family, embezzled £4 billion from the Bangladeshi taxpayer. Oh boy, yeah, it's the same Tulip, by the way, who couldn't quite work out how she managed to acquire a £700,000 flat in London. That's not suspicious at all. Anyway, all of this just goes to show how terrible Keir Starmer's judgment is, because he probably picked, if the allegations are true, I should stress, the most corrupt person in the UK and made them the anti-corruption minister. You really just can't write this stuff, can you? Now, if you actually go looking, you can find a whole bunch of these stories of weird connections between businesses and the Labour Party. Let me give you a couple. Dale Vince, he's the CEO of a company called Ecotricity. And Dale is a kind of strange guy, right? He's about 70 years old. He dresses like he's 16. It's really cringeworthy, but that's not the point. The point is this. Dale donated £5 million to the Labour Party. And then what happened mysteriously a few months later? Ed Miliband approved his project to plaster Lincolnshire fields with solar panels. Okay, now look, in the interest of balance, Dale has come out and said that those projects being approved are nothing to do with his donations to the Labour Party. Sure, I believe you. Another one for you, Peter Kyle, a Labour MP. He studied geography at university, so his area of technical expertise, you would imagine, is geography or something to do with it. And yet he was paid £36,000 by an AI company to lend them his technical expertise. That's interesting. What happened a few months later? Well, Peter Kyle's department handed a £2.3 million government contract back to that same AI company. That screams conflict of interest to me, by the way, but that's by the by. You would now imagine that what that company was doing is something to do with geography, but it's not. It's all to do with analysing social media trends. I'm not sure how well you can see, but Annie has actually gone for a little bit of a swim, which she's allowed to do. The water looks mostly clean. Hello, baby. Don't shake next to me. Good girl. Ugh, damp. Soggy dog. Soggy doggy. Ugh. Go on. Now, what's fascinating to me about the stories that I've just told you is that they are exactly the kinds of things that Labour for years were rightly criticising the Tories for. And yet, after just 240 or so days in government, they've completely lost the moral high ground. It probably doesn't help, by the way, that Keir Starmer has taken more freebies than any other MP. But why has this happened? Why has this happened to the Labour Party and so quickly? Well, I think there's two reasons, and the first is really rather simple. It comes down to Keir Starmer. He is just not a very good judge of character. You only have to go and watch my last video about him appointing his old mate Lord Hermer as the Attorney General to understand that he is not a good judge of character. He doesn't have political savviness, and that has really kind of got the whole Labour Party into a bit of a mess. You see, Keir's entire life's work has been as a barrister, right, as a lawyer. And so all he's ever had to do is procedural tasks, looking at a piece of text or a piece of legislation and work out if he can use that to convince a judge to get his client off or to help his client in some way. That's all he's ever had to do. He's never had to lead in the way that he now has to lead. And so he's really just not very good at it. He's just used to those procedural tasks. And look, that's why he took all the gifts from Lord Ali. Over 100 grand's worth of freebies went to Keir Starmer because he looked at the rules and he said, yes, by the absolute letter of the law, I can do this. And so I'm going to. Rather than thinking, is it the morally correct thing to do? What kind of example does this set to the people who are under my command, who I'm leading? Is this politically savvy? Will there be blowback? Instead of considering any of that, he was happy to take over 100 grand's worth of freebies because, yeah, as per the legislation, as per what's written, the code of conduct, he can. And that's the problem that Labour are getting into. Now, in order to consider the second reason why I think this is all going a bit pear-shaped for the Labour Party, you have to consider why people get into politics in the first place. Sure, the salary for an MP is about 90 grand, which is a lot, but there's no job security. You could do the best job ever for your constituents and still get booted out in a few years' time, and there's really not that much you can do about it. If your party doesn't perform particularly well, but you do, you still get the axe. Okay, and also £91,000. If you are really good, if you are very, very intelligent, you can go and earn a lot more working at JP Morgan or Goldman Sachs. Look, these jets just keep circling me. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to finish the video. Hopefully they're not coming after me. Maybe the Second English Civil War has started, but nobody told me, and that'd be interesting to go back to and listen to on the news. Anyway, there's a bunch of reasons people get into politics, right? You could be ambitious and power hungry, like Wes Streeting, for example, sure. You can love your country, like Rupert Lowe, and that's why he doesn't even take a salary, sure. But then the third reason is you literally can't do anything better. And I suspect that that really does apply to a lot of these guys, the Labour MPs and the Labour councillors. I refuse to believe that they're doing this because they have a passion for and love this country. I'm sure some of them definitely love a country, but it's probably more likely to be Pakistan or Gaza than it is to be England. Now, I also said at the start of this video that I have a little gift for the dog, and I do. It's a Highland cow, a Scottish Highland cow, or as they say in Scotland, a Highland coo, a Hieland coo. And that's not just me mocking the Scottish accent, by the way. That is really the word, and that is how they say it. And I got her this because someone called JL Crafty Scott, I'm not sure if it's a guy or a girl, sent me $100. And I just have to make this point. Do not send me $100. I feel bad when people like Jammy Dodger send me 15 quid, right? Please don't send me $100. In fact, don't send any YouTuber $100. There are some obvious exceptions. If, say, I don't know, Paul Thorpe or someone gets in trouble with the police because he said something really a little bit controversial online and then he needs some help with legal fees, sure, fine, that's a different kind of situation. Then you can help as you see fit because you're protecting him and his right to free speech. But in general, I would discourage sending large sums of money to people online. I don't know, it makes me feel guilty. It's not that I'm not grateful, I'm super grateful, but because it's so much money, when someone sends me £2 or a fiver, I don't think about it. I don't really think about it too much. I'm grateful, but I don't feel guilty is what I'm trying to say. But when someone sends me $100, that's too much. Anyway, let's give the dog this, I don't know if she's even gonna come. Annie, come here. Come here, puppy. Here it is, the Highland Coupe. I got a Highland cow because I presume that J.L. Crafty Scott is in fact a Scot. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh no. Okay, I think I'm gonna have to carry him because she's just gonna keep dropping him and it's gonna get very, very dirty. But again, thank you very, very much to J.L. Crafty Scott. Of course, I had to share the reward with Annie because she's the real star of the show. She comes with me on all these long walks. Please do leave a like, leave a comment, leave a subscription if you're not already subscribed. I guess you don't really leave a subscription, but you just make one. Anyway, that's a point of semantics for you. And thank you very much. I'm really, again, I said it in the last video, but I'm sort of blown away with the progress of the channel. And it's almost at 30,000 subscribers, which is crazy. 30,000 of you are willing to watch me take my dog for a walk and listen to the things I have to say on politics. But it's great. It's very, very nice. And it's very rewarding. So thank you again. And till the next one.